Hello, Bloomington. I'm Mayor Tim Busse, and this is the Council Minute for the week of July 2nd. I hope everyone had a great 4th of July celebration. Thanks to everybody who joined us for Summerfest despite the heat and the threat of rain. We had a fantastic time once again. Special thanks to everyone who worked so very hard to make it happen. We didn't have a council meeting this week, but there are a couple of things that I wanted to catch you up on. Last week, I had the pleasure of being part of a roundtable discussion at Normandale Community College on the topic of the microchip industry in Minnesota, and more specifically, how to continue to grow the microchip industry right here in Bloomington. The event was hosted by Senator Amy Klobuchar and U.S. Secretary of Commerce Gina Raimondo, and it included executives from the microchip industry, representatives from all levels of education, the trades, and government. Some quick background. A lot of people don't realize that there is a robust and growing microchip ecosystem right here in Bloomington. And when I say microchips, I'm talking about those small little chips that are vitally important in everything. From your cell phone, to medical technology, to cars, to advanced military equipment and space technology. The entire microchip industry was basically born here in Minnesota back in the 1960s, thanks to a lot of brilliant thinkers like Seymour Cray and William Norris. They started Control Data Corporation, which was a mainframe and supercomputer company that was located right here in Bloomington. Control Data was a big, important part of Bloomington's economy at that time, but ultimately, the quickly evolving computer industry moved past them, and in the late 1980s, Control Data began selling off parts of their company. Many of those parts became successful businesses in their own right, and a good number are still here in Bloomington. Companies like Polar Semiconductor, Seagate, Ceridian, On2 Innovation, Skywater Technology, and others. I participated in the roundtable last week in my mayor's role, but I also have a connection through my day job, which is with Skywater Technology, a chips manufacturing company here in Bloomington. So I know full well the success of the microchip industry is an important part of Bloomington's future. So, what brought Senator Klobuchar and Secretary Raimondo to Normandale to talk about the chips industry? A little bit more background. While the majority of microchips are designed here in the United States, only about 13% are actually made here in the U.S. That percentage used to be a lot higher, but now the vast majority are made in places like Taiwan, China, and South Korea. And during the pandemic, we saw that was a problem. Supply chain issues meant that U.S. companies couldn't get the chips they needed to make their products. We saw it especially in new cars, but it affected a lot of industries. The concentration of chips manufacturing in Taiwan, that's also concerning, especially if China decides to take greater control of Taiwan. Understanding the importance of the chips industry and the need to bring chips manufacturing back to the United States, last August, Congress passed and President Biden signed the CHIPS and Science Act. The act provides roughly $280 billion in new funding to boost domestic research and manufacturing of semiconductors here in the United States. Now, to get any of that federal funding, states are required to show support as well. So this past legislative session, Governor Walz signed a bill that created the Minnesota Forward Fund, which includes $250 million to help Minnesota microchip companies grow and expand. Most of the Bloomington companies that I mentioned earlier, they're busy putting together applications to hopefully receive some of that federal funding. In addition to looking at new and updated equipment or expanding their buildings, each of those companies understand the importance of having a trained and skilled workforce to fill the jobs they'll be creating. Because of the shared challenges, those companies are working together closely to try and address the workforce issues, as well as other issues like childcare and transportation. That's why Senator Klobuchar and Secretary Raimondo hosted the roundtable at Normandale, to raise awareness about the incredible opportunity we have here in Bloomington and to convene a conversation about how industry, education, and government can work together to attract and train the workforce needed to make Minnesota a microchip hub once again. The potential jobs we're talking about span the educational spectrum, and they are very good paying jobs. And those jobs would be part of a strong industry that will be in high demand for years to come. It's one clear way that we are cultivating high demand, high paying jobs right here in Bloomington. We have a ways to go on this, but this is a very exciting opportunity for Bloomington. I'll be sure to keep you updated as things progress. Earlier this month, the City of Bloomington received some very nice statewide recognition for our work in the area of sustainability. Bloomington was awarded a 2023 Sustainable City Award by the League of Minnesota Cities for our Bulky Item Management Program. As you probably know, the Bulky Item Management Program began in 2022 to give residents a way to dispose of bulky, unwanted items in a more sustainable way. Prior to 2022, Bloomington held a curbside cleanup event every spring since the 1960s. Residents could place pretty much anything out on the curb, and while some of that unwanted material was collected by scrappers or treasure hunters, a good chunk was collected by garbage haulers, and then it ended up in a landfill. City staff and members of the Sustainability Commission heard from a lot of residents who said that they wanted other options to dispose of stuff where the end result wasn't contributing to a landfill. So the council adopted the new Bulky Item Management Program in 2022, and it includes an every other year curbside cleanup with more careful limits on the items accepted. It also includes a monthly pickup of reusable and recyclable bulky items from the curb, an annual recycling drop-off event, and swap events for reusable items. In 2022, the new and improved program resulted in 584 fewer tons of waste going to landfills. 61 tons of material was recycled or reused. And the first swap event diverted more than 1,000 pounds of gardening tools for reuse. That is great work. So it was very nice to be recognized by the League of Minnesota Cities at their recent annual conference in Duluth. The Sustainable City Award is presented annually to recognize sustainability efforts among cities that participate in the Minnesota Green Step Cities program. Bloomington is part of the Green Step Cities program, which is a free, voluntary program designed to help cities meet environmental sustainability goals through the implementation of 29 best practices. Bloomington has reached Step 5 in the Green Step Cities program, which is the highest level you can go. Only about 40 Minnesota cities have reached that level. Hats off to our Sustainability Commission and our city staff who are working so hard to make Bloomington a more environmentally sustainable city. That will do it for this week's Council Minute. Thanks very much for joining me today. Until next time, stay safe, Bloomington.